Let's get to our power rankings, Logan. We've already talked about each of these teams individually as we've done our division predictions. This is not going to be a matter of regular season success. This is how we view these teams in terms of their chances to win a championship, projecting to the playoffs. Our top 10. Who do you have in that 10 spot, Logan?
Yeah, number 10, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. I think it starts and ends their title chances do with the health of Zion Williamson. We cannot rely on Zion to be fully healthy. It's just a reality. He's missed too much time. I mentioned this in our preview episode. He's the most efficient 25 point per game scorer of all time. Zion's unstoppable rolling to the rack, and that's what's going to lead this team to being great offensively. Last season, they were top 10 in defensive rating. I think those are the requisite marks that they have to hit to be a genuine title contender. This has to be a great defense. I think they can physically impose their will on other teams. They're long, they're strong, they're going to dominate the glass, but they need Zion to lead this offense to really great heights. McCollum and Ingram are great 2s and 3s, but they're not number 1s that are going to lead this team out to contention without Zion. I mean, we just saw that last season. I don't love their depth. I don't love their total creation down this roster. Again, this is Zion being fully healthy. This is Ingram locking in defensively, playing great ball like he did last season. I thought he reached a playmaking and scoring apex. I mean, I thought this was the best season of basketball that we've ever seen Brandon Ingram play. Is it likely? No. That's why they're number 10, but I would give New Orleans a very slim outside shot at either getting to the finals or winning the finals if Zion's healthy. We've just never seen it, and I want to this season. My close omissions, I considered Cleveland. I considered OKC, both of them. OKC just a little bit too young right now for me to put them in my top 10, and then Cleveland, a little too many red flags spilling over from last season for me to put them in my 10 spot. So I'll pencil in New Orleans here, and here's to hoping that this is finally the year we see Zion healthy.
Yeah, I think that we're all pulling for it, and you and I are both very high on healthy Zion. I think if you've been paying attention, you have to be. He's a top 15 player alive. He's one of the most uniquely dominant offensive players we've ever seen, and I do think the healthy Pelicans are really good. They're one of my toughest cuts. I think it's tough for them to be truly elite on either side of the ball, just with the lack of really high-end rim protection. They've got very good defensive wings, and then also offensively, they have a good blend of perimeter creation from CJ and BI, and then that great rim pressure from Zion and Valanciunas. But in terms of some of those effortless runs, overly dynamic shooting, ideal spacing, star playmaking, I just don't think that they're in the top tier. But I do think they should be a good team on both sides of the ball. And I'm with you on the Cavs. That was my toughest cut. I think that they have a couple clear strengths that is going to lead them to win a lot of regular season games. That star shot making from the guards and that elite rim protection, but everything that we saw bite them last year in the playoffs, that lack of skill and athleticism from the wings. Yes, they've added Strus and Yang. Those guys can shoot. They're not versatile offensive players. They can't attack closeouts with their athleticism. They're still not really guys you want to rely on offensively in big spots. And then that compounded by the lack of offensive skill from the two bigs, which was really damaging, just shrinking the floor, allowing teams to key in on those star guards. Those things are too limiting. It makes them too predictable offensively. You can lull Donnie into those just tough shot stretches where it's a bunch of pull-up threes. I don't feel that the Cavs have fixed their issues until we see a leap from Evan Mobley and until they get better on the wings. But in my number 10 spot, I have a team that we haven't seen on the playoff stage, but I do have more faith in terms of their roster top to bottom, their depth, their wing play, the variety of ways in which they can win. I have the Thunder here. I think this is going to be a really good defense. They were above average last year without any real high-level rim protection because they had great length, they had versatile guys, they were incredible in the effort categories. Now you add Chet. I think he is a pro-ready rim protector. They have a superstar creator in SGA who is going to generate good offense, and they have a good secondary creator from the perimeter in Jalen Williams, who I love. I think he's super versatile, big-time scorer and playmaker. Now they have improved shooting and finishing from a guy like Chet Holmgren. I just think this is a team that was already solid last year, has added talent, and is very much trending upwards. I don't see there's any path for them to win the title, though. First of all, they are young. Guys who I believe will be bona fide star talents down the line, like Jalen Williams, like Chet Holmgren especially, I don't think will be there this year in their second and first seasons respectively. But also, this isn't a team that I think is built to explode in terms of their shooting. Whenever you have Giddey and Dort out there for big minutes, those are just two non-shooters. They're going to limit that a little bit. And although I really like Chet as a pure rim protector, in terms of the physicality categories on the interior, I still think that they're going to be a little bit outmatched. So this is a team that is going to be good on both sides of the ball, that has foundational pieces on both sides of the ball, that is going to play really hard. They're athletic. They're going to be a tough out for anybody. But are they at the point right now where I can see them winning multiple playoff series? Definitely not. They're a tier below that, but they're also, I think, a very legitimately good basketball team, so I have them at number 10.
Yeah, I think they're really good too, and I think they're going to be competitive night to night. I can see them pushing a team in the first round, maybe, in terms of being competitive, but I don't see them as a legit contender. And that's kind of the tier that these teams are in, all the way up to number 7. I don't consider them real contenders, but, I didn't consider the Miami Heat to be a real contender last season, and
Who did?
they got to the NBA Finals. So what do I know? At number 9, I have the New York basketball Knicks, and I think there's a lot to like about the Knicks. I like a lot of what they did in the offseason, and I like a lot of the young talent that they have. This bench was imperative to them winning a ton of basketball games last year, and it's going to be imperative again to have the luxury of the Nova boys, either one of Dante DiVincenzo or Josh Hart off the bench is huge. To have Emmanuel Quickley off the bench, to have these young guys like Deuce McBride, Quentin Grimes, minor assets, but I like them a lot. I like Deuce McBride's defensive game. I think we saw in college at West Virginia he had some offensive creation. I hope with added burn he shows us some more of that. Quentin Grimes, stretches where he was shooting the hell out of the ball. He's a good athlete, can attack closeouts. So I like a lot of the talent here. And I love Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson and Emmanuel Quickley are my two favorite players in all of basketball. And Brunson is huge in terms of what he can do for an offense, the way he collapses the defense, the way he uses screens and just gets downhill. I mean, you have to pay him so much attention, it just opens the floor for all of the other pieces. And I think this can be a great team defense, too, which they weren't last season. With Mitchell Robinson in the middle and all these dogs and Thibodeau's mindset, I think this can be a great team defense. The things that hold this team back for me are the same things that held this team back last season. It's Julius Randle playing good basketball, just making good decisions, playmaking correctly, taking smart shots, being efficient, being good on the playoff stage. I can't bank on that, and I also can't bank on R.J. Barrett being better. He was better in the playoff run. I want to give him a ton of credit. He was crashing the boards. He was playing good defense. He was attacking closeouts. He was making open shots, and he wasn't forcing things out of rhythm. Do I expect that for a full season? Do I expect real growth from RJ? I'm hopeful for it. I'm optimistic, but I wouldn't bank on it. And so that's ultimately what holds the Knicks back for me. I think they could win a playoff series. I don't think they could win the title this year. I think it needs to be addition by subtraction, Carson, until they get rid of Randall or make a real, star improvement. That's what they need alongside Brunson. I don't think they can get it done. I like the Knicks a lot, but I don't love them enough to say that they're a real title contender.
I am so close to loving the New York Knicks.
Right?
I love Brunson as a half-court engine. He made them a damn good offense down the stretch last regular season and then was unbelievable in the playoffs. I think that this is a stronger core of role players than last year with a full season of Josh Hart, with Dante DiVincenzo. I think there's a bit more defense, playmaking, shooting on the wings, real solid guys. I think they're elite in terms of size and rebounding. I think they're certainly a more complete all-around basketball team than somebody like the Cavs. And we saw that in their matchup last year. Who had more quality basketball players? Who had more quality wings? Who had fewer glaring weaknesses that could be exposed? It was the Knicks. But they do still have one real big problem, and that is playoff Julius Randle, who, I'm with you, has been awful every series we've seen him in. Last year averaged 16.6 points per game with as many turnovers as assists on 48.5% true shooting. Just an embarrassment. And he's way too erratic as a jump shooter to be relied on in a star role offensively with the frequency at which he likes to take them. And when it comes to a playoff setting and defenses really try to make him beat them with playmaking, when they load up on him, he just crumbles. And we've seen it every time that he's been there up to this point. I also do still worry about RJ Barrett in a really high volume role offensively, just his consistency. And I worry about the spot up shooting here, playing a non-shooting 5 in Robinson with Randall and RJ's inconsistencies. We saw it against the Heat last year. The willingness to load up on Brunson, to clog those paints, and to say, beat us with your spot up shooting. And the Knicks just couldn't do it. So because I think that they're even better than last year, I have them in my 9 spot, same as you. And I'm so close to feeling like they could be towards that legitimate contender tier. But when you have a star who I think is just going to be atrocious for a series at any time, or certainly in big games is going to kill you in a high volume role, you can only go so far like that. So they're close, but I'm with you. I can't put them into that legitimate contender tier yet. Who do you have at number 8, Logan?
I've got the Philadelphia 76ers at 8, and I don't really, again, they're in this tier of not real contenders to me, but give them a chance to make a little noise in the playoffs. The real thing that I think is going to hold the Sixers back is something that we've discussed in depth. It's no James Harden. If Harden is not with this team, I think it really limits the ceiling that they can reach. He was super imperative to Joel Embiid last season, creating and generating a lot of easy looks for him. While Harden might not be at his apex, he's still a damn good player, right? He's a smart playmaker. He's can control the offense, and in a playoff setting can still explode. He's a volatile guy and can go for big games that swing series, right? He stole 2 games against the Celtics. Was huge in that series. Without Harden, Maxey will step up. He'll score more. He'll probably average more assists, and he'll be a lot of fun, but I don't think it's going to lead to better offense. I think Harden makes this team better. Defensively, I think they're going to be great with Embiid in the middle, guys on the wings. Offensively, I think they're going to be good with all this talent, with a 30-point-per-game scorer in Embiid, with a 25-guy in Tyrese Maxey, with Tobias Harris, but they're not better than last season. I like the additions of Kelly Oubre Jr., I like the Anthony Melton, I like Mo Bamba off the bench, but none of these are major needle movers to me, and without James Harden out on the floor, they're just not better than last year, and so I can't pick them to do anything else. I'd like to see another star in here, and I hope this is not, the breaking point for Joel Embiid. We've talked about a lot of superstars, Carson, that may be getting fed up with their current situations. Embiid, Luka Doncic. I hope this isn't the breaking point for Philadelphia, but I think this is going to be another year of disappointment. I don't think Philly is a legit contender to me.
I definitely don't. They're closer to being 11 or 12 on this list for me than they are to being 6 if James Harden isn't out there. And I'm giving them the 8 spot, same as you. Out of respect largely to Embiid's impact at his peak, we have seen him regress every time that he's been to the playoffs in a pretty significant way every time. And I definitely take note of that, but I also think the ability to have a guy who can be a really high-end defensive anchor and then who can also be a dominant scorer offensively is very valuable. He's one of the best players on the planet, and they do have good supporting scorers alongside him. I think Maxey can get 25 a night. Tobias Harris, I don't love as your 3rd option. I'd prefer him to be in that 4th option role where you don't need to rely on him night to night as much, but I still think the amount of attention that Embiid demands from a defense and the scoring skill alongside him, there'll be a good offense, but losing that playmaking from Harden, losing that bit of scoring punch, I do think matters. I don't think this is a team that is going to explode a ton offensively in the playoffs. I don't think this is a team that is going to get better in the playoffs, certainly, because we have seen it from Embiid. When you send a lot of doubles at him, he struggles with the playmaking. We've seen his body break down. We've seen his jump shot consistently fail him. We've seen him not able to get to the line at nearly the same rate, and that knocks down his production and efficiency as a scorer. So you have to factor in some playoff regression from him. You have to factor in that the entire offense won't run as smoothly without the sort of brilliant pick and roll playmaking you get from Harden. And the depth here isn't great. I like Melton. I like Paul Reed, but I don't see a ton of real high impact guys beyond the top 3 in this roster. I think the Knicks are a more complete basketball team, but the Sixers have Joel Embiid. And even if it's playoff Embiid, he's a real difference maker. And, they don't have to try to overcome Julius Randle shooting 3 of 18 with 6 turnovers every couple games. But you can't put them into that top tier. And as we've talked about, they are really plummeting towards Embiid forcing their hand in a big way or Embiid just asking out entirely. And that's a tough spot for them to be in.
No, a very tough spot indeed, Carson. And I didn't anticipate having this team above Philly, and maybe people will have some issues with this. I have the Miami Heat at number 7, and that's basically reputation based. The Philadelphia 76ers have shown me a track record. The Miami Heat have shown me a track record. The Heat's track record is that they just need to get into the playoffs to give themselves a chance. You know, they've got a brilliant schematic coach who can scheme up anything against any team that he plays. He's going to highlight matchups. He's going to make adjustments, and he's going to make life hell on you come playoff time. They also have two of the top 10 best defenders on the planet. Bam Adebayo has defended the most isolations in the NBA, I believe, over the past 4 seasons, and he's been the most efficient isolation defender in all of basketball. Bam is a game-breaking talent in terms of his versatility. Jimmy Butler is a dog. Like, I didn't pick the Miami Heat to win a single series last year. I don't think a lot of people did. You know, we kept counting them out every step along the way, and so I'm going to count them out again here. I don't expect Miami to do anything this season, but it doesn't matter. If Miami's going to do something, I mean, they have the capacity to do it because of the adjustments they can make, because of the ceiling that Jimmy Butler can reach in the playoffs, because of how dominant their defense can be. And if they can just get any of the role players again to step up and do what they did, they lose Max Strus, they lose Gabe Vincent. Those are huge losses, but they can replace them. They bring back in Josh Richardson. Tyler Hero is going to be healthy, hopefully, for this playoff run. Caleb Martin can maybe reach that ceiling. And then you got 2 young wings in Nikola Jovic and Jaime Jaquez Jr., who can hopefully produce. So, no, I wouldn't pick it, but the Miami Heat don't care. They're going to do their thing.
Yeah.
I do have them as more legit contenders than Philadelphia, though, because we've seen it. We just haven't seen it from Philadelphia. I might like the top end talent there more, but Miami's got a better formula and a better top 2 guys. So I've got Miami in my 7 spot.
I prefer Miami in a playoff setting too. I have them at number 7. Lots of agreement so far from us, Logan. I just think Philly is a team that is primed to regress in the playoffs. They are so singularly reliant on their one star who has some clear exploitable weaknesses. And Miami is sort of the opposite. They have a dude who consistently rises to the playoff stage in Jimmy Butler, and there are tangible reasons for that. His ability to physically impose himself, to get to his spots, to control the game, to set the pace. He just is a guy who is going to be better in the playoffs than the regular season. And because of their defensive anchor in Bam Adebayo, those guys are 2 top 20 players who are consistently going to step up. Yeah, maybe Jimmy doesn't play at the level that he did last year. That was pretty insane. We have seen it in 3 of the last 4 playoff runs now, but last year before he had that ankle injury was particularly just unfathomably good. And Bam may have some inconsistencies offensively, but those 2 are really reliable. And then the wing play, I'm not concerned about them losing Max Strus. I think he was a guy who got some heat inflation. Vincent, to me, served a more concrete role in the offense because of his ball handling, his pick and roll ability, his playmaking. But I think they did a solid job of replenishing on the wings. I like Josh Richardson. I think he brings some of the same stuff. Jaquez is a bit different, but he's going to compete defensively. He's going to bring some versatile scoring. Caleb Martin is still there. He was the best of the wing core. So a lot of what they did last year, they still have in place. They still have these massive coaching advantages. But when I'm looking at, all right, making a run to the finals, would I expect the Boston Celtics to melt down in the same way, to have the same lapses in defensive effort for halves and games at a time? I wouldn't. Would I expect the Heat to have the same unconscious shooting stretches where they're 45+% from deep for multiple rounds on super high volume? I wouldn't. Would I expect the Bucks to have the same half-court offensive issues now that they have Damian Lillard? I wouldn't. So all of those things compound, and this is just a team that overachieved. They still do have real playoff advantages over other teams, but versus the teams that are lapping them in terms of talent, is last year replicable? I would bet against it. They are also still small. They are very reliant on Jimmy for that offensive creation. He's the guy who has to do so much there. So I feel good with Miami at 7. There's a gap between the top 6 and them to me just because of talent, but they have the most proven playoff resume of anybody below that tier. So I will give them their credit because of that. All right, who do you have at 6, Logan?
At 6, I have the Phoenix Suns, and I think the Suns are the team most well equipped to leap up into a higher tier. I just haven't seen it with Phoenix, and that's why they're going to start out really low here. This is where we start creeping into the genuine contender tier, teams that I really think could hoist the trophy at the end of the season. Phoenix, I'm really worried about on one side of the basketball when you have Yusuf Nurkic anchoring your defense and not a whole lot of other great defensive talent down the roster. I'm worried about them defensively. But when you look at the other side of the ball, they've got three of the best offensive basketball players on the planet. KD and Book, unconscious off-the-dribble scorers in the mid-range, super versatile. And hopefully Bradley Beal can add a little bit of that added rim pressure. That's what I really look at from the addition of Beal. They need someone who can be a little more dynamic, who can get downhill. But again, like you mentioned in our preview, if they stagger the minutes with one of those three guys and run them with the bench unit, you shouldn't really be starved for creation at any point during the game. It's also going to come down to what we get out of the bench guys that they added. They added a lot of guys that I like: Watanabe, Eubanks, KBD, Nas Little, Grayson Allen off the bench. It's really going to be determined by what level those role players can reach to this season. There are guys that I like a lot, especially Grayson Allen. Not in terms of a human being, but in terms of basketball skill set that he brings. Phoenix could win the title at the end of the season. This is where the cutoff point really starts for me. It's going to be about what ceiling can they reach defensively and how well do their role players play come playoff time, but they've got as much star power as any other team in basketball.
They sure do. I have them at number 5. I think they have such an elite offensive foundation. And yeah, there are little things that I worry about. The spot-up three-point shooting, their ability to explode there, and the rim pressure. Like, will they fall into some lulls where they're just settling for a whole lot of mid-range pull-ups and those aren't falling? We saw it bite them last year. We will see it bite them again. But for the most part, that shot-making skill is just going to be so great that they're going to be a top 5 offense. Maybe they're not the best in the league. Maybe they're not the Nuggets, but they're in that next group. But I do agree with you. I think that this team will be competitive defensively because I think that they have solid personnel there. Okogie is good. Book is solid. KD is good in that secondary rim protection role. But in totality, first of all, they're going to be relying pretty heavily on the same dudes carrying the offensive load to then go out there and bust their asses on defense. That's just not an ideal formula to have them have to all be giving it everything on two ways, to have them being the guys who are doing the little things, who are playing with grit consistently, making the hustle plays. That's a lot of burden on your big three. And then also because of their issues at the 5, again, just lacking that high-end rim protection from Nurk. I'm just not super impressed by the defensive talent, and I think that when you're only average defensively, you can really only go so far. And maybe they can make a conference finals run, but winning it all, they would have to reach a higher level defensively than I am confident in them doing. But I love what they've done filling out the roster with the bench. I'm legitimately impressed by it. I think it's solid. They're just not the most complete two-way team when we're comparing them to the other teams in this contending tier. But I do like them more than the Warriors at number 6 because I think that offensive foundation is so reliably elite from the trio of Book, KD, and Beal, and especially that duo of Book and KD, who I think are among the handful of best scorers on the planet and are both top 10 players on the planet, period. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for throwing down $5 on the NBA. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant dub.
And with DraftKings parlays, everyone's got a shot at even bigger basketball wins. String together multiple bets from the same game or build your parlay across multiple games for a shot at making your payday even sweeter.
Basketball is more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code NERDS. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code NERDS. The crown is yours. With the Warriors, I look at their strengths. They have Steph Curry. That means they're going to be a good offense. I like what CP3 does to improve the second unit and their offensive competence in the non-Steph minutes. And I think they're going to be a good team defense. We've seen that with the foundation of Dre and Wiggs and Looney. So they should be a good team on both sides of the ball. But my concerns for them offensively remain the same as last year. That singular reliance on Steph to create when it comes down to it. Like, yeah, CP3 brings some pick and roll offense, but I don't love how he fits alongside Steph. He's not a dude who wants to be playing off ball, spot up shooting, and whatnot. And he has really regressed as a scorer, as we've talked about. And we saw it last year. They get into these spots where they have to play two big looks, which limits their offensive skill on the floor, but is really the only way for them to compete defensively in terms of size, especially against some of these big athletic teams in the West, like the Lakers, like the Nuggets. But then that just puts you in a spot where you don't have great offensive skill around Steph, you don't have great creation, and you don't have great shot making. So I still think there's too much of a burden on him to be just supernaturally great in this run. They can't blend those lineups that have size and skill at a high enough level for me to buy into them as a top tier contender. But because of Steph, because of the solid defensive foundation, because of just how established this offense is overall, they have to be in my top 6.
Yeah, I mean, those are probably the biggest concerns for me with the Warriors, too. We flop on these two teams. I have them at number 5. We're going to get a full year of Andrew Wiggins. Hopefully he's not out of rhythm, out of sync with the team when it comes playoff time. I think this is going to be a great defense again, anchored by Draymond Green and Kevin Looney. I think there is added creation finally outside of Steph. It's not great. It's not ideal, like you mentioned, but you do have CP3 and you have Podziemski. So, I think they're going to be better in those regards. And really the difference to me and why I have the Warriors over them is I just can trust the Warriors on defense. I prefer a two-way team to a team that's going to be singularly great on one end of the floor. I agree with you as, you don't want to lean that heavy on Steph, but you're going to have to. My biggest concern with the Dubs is probably Clay. And it's not even like, we know what Clay does. We know he can get hot in stretches. I mean, he's at 28% on 10 field goal attempts per game right now in the preseason, and I get this is preseason. He's 31% on 5 threes a game. Obviously, he's going to get better, but I mean, really, just overall regression, I guess, from Clay is another concern of mine, just in terms of, defensive ability, reliable. Like I don't know. I don't think this is the same Clay that we can bank on being great. He wasn't great in the playoffs this season.
Yeah.
I think he's the Warriors' 4th best player. You know what I mean? I think it goes Curry, Wiggins, Dre, and then it's Clay. But I just prefer a two-way team to where, I know the Suns are going to be great offensively. I want the team that's going to be really good on both ends of the floor.
Well, I think that's an important point about Clay, and I guess, had factored that in as just a reality for this team because we already saw it last year, but yeah, you saw the painful inconsistency throughout last year's playoffs, throughout last season. I'm not worried about what we see from him in preseason, right? He sucked in October last year, and then he had a couple of the best regular season months of his career, but he is not a reliable second creator. He is not a reliable second star offensively, and it's hard to win when you don't have that, and they don't have the level of supporting finishing around the rim that a team like the Nuggets do. They don't have that level of spot-up shooting. There's not as complete an offensive juggernaut, and we saw that exposed by the Lakers, a great team defense, but there are certain things that you can't take away, and I don't think the Warriors' offense is in that tier right now. They're very good. They're not in that tier. Okay, who do you have at number 4 here, Logan?
At number 4, I have the Boston Celtics. I think Boston improved a ton in this offseason. You get Drew Holiday, you get Kristaps Porzingis. Those were huge, massive gets. I mean, with that, you now have the best defensive guard tandem in all of basketball, bar none, with Derek White and Drew Holiday. You've got a pair of 2 really good defensive wings and athletic guys in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. You've got a little bit of lineup versatility now. If you want more size, you go Horford and Porzingis, or you can go with one or the other at the 5. You never lose any floor spacing with either of those guys, unless Al wants to decide he can't hit the broad side of a barn like he did in the playoffs last year. That was sad. The Celtics improved a lot. They made a lot of really good moves. I think Porzingis is going to add a dimension to this offense where hopefully they don't get into these lulls. They can throw it to him on the block. They can run DHOs. Really, I think it's a question of, what are we going to see from the Celtics in crunch time? Are they going to be great when it comes, in the clutch? And are they going to consistently put forth effort defensively? Those are my really big questions for Boston. I don't love the bench. I like Jordan Walsh. He's cool. I think their bench has definitely taken a step back with the moves they made, but I think it's worth it when you can acquire two top-end talents like Holiday, like Porzingis. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of weight on Peyton Pritchard to help this bench come along, but that's a minute detail. The Celtics improved a lot in the offseason, but it's a lot of fixing the issues that we've seen bite them in the ass in the playoffs the couple past years.
Yeah, I don't want to beat a dead horse with the Celtics. This is the most talented starting five in basketball, top to bottom. I think this should be a significantly better team defensively than last year. They regressed in the playoffs. I think if they buy in consistently, they have even better personnel. They should be elite. They should be an elite two-way team. So I have them at number 3. I just think their talent level is so high. And even when the Celtics underachieve and were disappointed, that's them losing in Game 7 of the conference finals. I think that the questions that remain, though, are their half-court offense in crunch time. Drew, to me, doesn't fix that with some of the regression we've seen from him in the playoffs. Unreliable as a pull-up shooter. Not a great half-court offensive engine in totality. And Tatum, these lulls where he's settling for the same pull-up threes and where his playmaking falls apart. And Jalen is susceptible to falling into offensive lulls, too. He's a sort of two-dimensional offensive player who's also very limited as a playmaker. So those are the concerns. If Tatum takes that leap to where he is consistently great offensively, where he's a more versatile shot maker, a better playmaker, a top 5 player, night in, night out, the Celtics probably win the title. I need to see that to buy into it, and I am also worried about the depth here, especially with the bigs, especially with what we saw from Horford in last year's playoffs. But I really like the Porzingis signing. I think that he had an underrated season. I think that level of offensive punch, rim finishing, shot making from the perimeter, and good rim protection, that dude is like a star level player to me. And I do like the Drew addition, but again, it helps them defensively. It doesn't solve their biggest offensive issues in terms of the consistency there. So until I see it, until I see that they can get over the same Achilles heel that has bit them in the past, I can't move them higher than number 3. But I do have them there. And at number 4, I have the Lakers, who I know you're a bit higher on. I think this is a team that's built to have the best defense in basketball because of how great of an anchor Anthony Davis is and because I like their personnel alongside him, especially in the front court, big physical wings. D'Lo was defending well in preseason. If he continues to buy in, he's a guy who has the physical tools to have an impact there. And I love their role players. I love their depth. I love the combinations they can have, the high-end shooting skill that they can get from some of the wings, Taurean Prince, the variety of ball handlers that they have, where if D'Lo sucks, you bring in Gabe Vincent. Austin Reeves, I think, is a reliable third option, injecting more offensive skill in the front court with a guy like Christian Wood, and then injecting more strong defensive personnel in the front court with a guy like Jackson Hayes. Top to bottom, I just think it's a versatile, really impressive roster. But the fundamental question that remains for me is if LeBron James and Anthony Davis can reliably enough reach the level that this team needs for them to win the title, because this is the best overall team that the Lakers have had. This was also certainly the lowest level that we've seen from LeBron in last year's playoff run. We'll see how much his foot was impacting him, but we've talked about it. Not taking over games with that creation from the perimeter, picking his spots much more, relying on his jump shot where he was struggling, putting up 24 a game on league average efficiency. You need more from him more consistently if you want to win the title. And the same goes for Anthony Davis offensively. There were just the stretches where he was too passive, too reliant on the touch shot making. I want to see more reliable offensive skill from him at the highest level. And so because those two were disappointing to me in the totality of last year's playoff run, they both had great moments, but they were both too inconsistent. That's why I can't put them in my top 2, in my top 3. Half-court offense, star offensive production is so important, and they have the ceiling if those dudes play at the level that they're capable of, their best level night in, night out. I just have too many concerns about that still to have them above my number 4 spot.
I hear that, Carson, and those are my big concerns for the Lakers as well. Just LeBron and Anthony Davis. And if they can reach their apexes, because both of them are going to need to. I think Anthony Davis is going to have to be the best player on this basketball team for the Lakers to win the title. They are my title favorite. They are my number one in my power rankings. I know that's shocking, but I think they've got one more year in them. I gave the Cliff Notes version of this in our Pacific Division preview pod, or excuse me, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version here. I think this Lakers team is cognizant that LeBron does not have a lot left in the tank, that this is a push year, that this is a year where everybody's going to need to put everything on the table and push. It's all hands on deck to get LeBron another ring. It's going to take him playing great. It's going to take AD playing great. It's going to take all of the other guys doing their jobs as well. But I think you laid out a lot of the distinct advantages that the Lakers have and why they'll be better from last season. Length and defense. This is a long, tall, lengthy team that is going to be great defensively. I think they're going to be the best defense in basketball as well. Offensively, I think they've upgraded in terms of their spot-up guys. I mentioned this on the Pacific Division preview show. They have 5 of the top 30 spot-up players in all of basketball in terms of spot-up efficiency. And then they've got other, good floor spacers and shooters. I think they've got upgraded creation by bringing back D'Lo and Austin Reeves. That's probably my biggest concern outside of LeBron and AD playing well. Like you mentioned, Carson, other guys that can create in the half court. But I like the guys on the wings. I like the defense. I think LeBron and AD can reach those heights. And, yeah, I think they improved more than any other team in the offseason, man, from where they came from with all of the great impactful role players that they added. LeBron and AD have to reach that apex. But if it can happen, I fully believe in the Lakers winning the NBA Finals this year.
I love it. I think that the ceiling is there, but to me, they're just not as reliable in terms of the formula as my top 3. But who do you have in that 3 spot?
At number 3, I've got the Milwaukee Bucks, and again, it's really marginal between all 3 of these teams. The one thing that I've noticed from watching the Bucks in preseason with the addition of Damian Lillard, and this is a really simple observation, but it's crazy how well they're going to be able to space the floor with Damian Lillard. Like, the attention that the defense has to pay him. I watched Bucks Grizzlies the other night. Man, Dame just pulling from, nearly the logo. Like, it seems like it's 5 feet from behind the line. It's just so hard to defend when you have to pay attention to this amazing perimeter creator. And then Middleton, having him as a weapon that you can just let him go to work and create out of the pick and roll. It's seemingly unfair. I mean, it's a really good trio at the top. I think they're going to be so much better offensively than where they were with Drew Holiday. And hear me out here. Drew Holiday is one of the best perimeter defenders on the planet. Bar none. I don't think the Bucks need him as much as they need a guy like Dame, right? They need the added half-court creation.
Yeah.
They lose something, in a point-of-attack defender in Drew Holiday. But when you have Brook Lopez and Giannis Antetokounmpo as your backline guys, you can get away with not having a great point-of-attack guy. So Dame just takes this team up a completely other level. He's one of the best offensive players in all of basketball, one of the best perimeter creators in all of basketball. This is going to be a great defense anchored by Giannis and Brook. The offense is going to be so much better, and this is a peanut butter and jelly combo when you're talking about perimeter and interior combinations in Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo. My one question, I guess, is the depth, really. It's not as good as it has been in years previous, but there are guys that I think could step their games up. Malik Beasley did not play really well last season. I think could be a really valuable weapon alongside Dame. Giannis is an off-ball guy. Andre Jackson is going to come in here and be a really good defender. Pat Connaughton's going to do his thing. And I think Marjon Beauchamp has looked really good in preseason, and I'm really excited to see how he can fill it up this year. The one spot off the bench that they have to address, Carson, Robin Lopez cannot play NBA basketball. That guy is not an NBA player anymore. I like that they've got the brother pairing here, Robin and Brook. It's cool. Robin Lopez cannot play NBA-level basketball anymore. He is just not equipped. You don't have the facilities, bruv. I'm sorry, man.
Wow.
Robin Lopez is not an NBA player anymore.
Wow. Coming at Rolo's head. Yeah, I don't think that he's going to play. I mean, we've seen the Bucks go out there without a traditional backup center, playing Bobby as that sort of backup big, and I don't think that they need Lopez in any sort of role here. I actually have the Bucks as my number 1 team.
Ooh.
And it's what we've talked about. They have so perfectly solved their biggest offensive issue, which was that reliable elite half-court creation. The same thing that we saw kill them against the Heat, where they crumbled in the crunch. Dame is one of the best in the world there. Dame is a hyper-efficient 30-point-per-game scorer, damn good playmaker, dominant pick-and-roll force, and you are just going to be making defenses pick their poison every single time down the floor. You run pick and roll, and it's great. All right, well, we got to hedge hard so we can take away a Damian Lillard pull-up three. Oh, wait, that means that now he's able to hit Giannis off the short roll, and it's either Giannis coming downhill, which is a nightmare, or if we send help his way, now he can kick out to one of the multiple very high-level shooters on this offense. That to me is just such a convincing solve for their biggest problem that, yes, I do think they've lost something defensively. And maybe this isn't the best playoff defense in the field like they were in 2022 and like they were in 2021. But I still think it's a damn good one. I still think that front court is the most important part of that defensive foundation. And when you have now this level of offensive punch, the best duo in the NBA to me and a incredibly complimentary one, and the best top four in the NBA to me, and very complimentary. You get the floor spacing and the rim protection from Brook. You get the catch and shoot ability from Middleton, but then also the pick and roll creation himself, the 3-level scoring, the playmaking. There's a good shooting supporting cast here overall. I think that they have the highest two-way ceiling in the NBA. I believe they have a top 2 player on the planet, and I believe that Dame covers up for all of Giannis's biggest issues. So I don't love the depth here. That is a bit of a question. I don't love the perimeter defense here. And I do wonder if they can reach the offensive ceiling of like the Denvers of the world, where it's just effortless possession to possession. Everybody's such a high-level player that they have the best offensive engine in basketball in Jokic. But I don't think that they quite have to. I think they just have to be within striking range, and then they are good enough defensively in the front court to just knock down Denver's production that 5 to 10%. And put them over the top. It's so close to me between those two teams, but that two-way formula from Milwaukee, it is so impressive to me. I buy into that the most.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I think that's really the key when it comes to playing Denver. It's not about shutting them down. It's not about dominating like this. It's about being a great offense and being comparable to them where you can hang in there and then slowing them down a little bit defensively. And that's really, Denver comes in at my number 2 spot, and that's really what I would highlight in potential matchups against Milwaukee and against Los Angeles. Against Boston, too, in a hypothetical, but I like Milwaukee a little more, so I'll focus on that. Because we've said everything there is to say about Denver. They're running back basically the same core. They lost some assets. It's going to be important for the new role guys to step up, the Peyton Watsons, the Christian Browns, the Julian Strothers, the Jalen Pickett's, the Hunter Tysons of the world. It's going to be on them to step up as role players, but it's moreover, how do they match up against these top dogs? And I think the Lakers and the Bucks are the most well-equipped to defend them because of the Lakers' length, because of their size. And the same thing goes for the Bucks with Giannis and Brook in the middle and Bobby Portis off the bench. You need those big guys who can not get big-bodied to compete against Denver, and it's going to be about slowing them down enough. Denver's number 2, really for no other reason than I like the Lakers just a little bit more. Denver's got as repeatable a formula as they come, and I do think these role players are going to be great alongside Jokic. Julian Strother is my favorite of the bunch, was 99th percentile in spot-up situations last season, but I don't know, there's no real variables for me other than how good can the role players play, Carson. This is as reliable a recipe in the NBA as they come. The Bruce Brown loss is big. Somebody's going to have to step up and create a little bit off the bench, but I think that somebody will. So outside of just Lakers bias, Denver comes in at number 2. I just like the Lakers just a little bit more.
Yeah, I think that the Nuggets have a more reliable formula because they have the best player in the league and they have the best offense in the league, and we saw that knock the Lakers on their ass, and there wasn't really anything that they could do about that. So they have to be my favorite out west. They are neck and neck with Milwaukee. I do have a couple questions. Their depth, we need to see it. I really like Strother. I think he's pro-ready, but Bruce was a very versatile impact guy. I don't think that they're replacing his value with any one player. I like Christian Brown. We need to see him more consistently play at a high level versus last year. We talked about Jalen Pickett brings some of that bench creation out of pick and roll. Hunter Tyson brings some spot-up shooting. In the aggregate, I think they've done a good job. But I also don't think they have a single sixth guy who will impact the game like Bruce Brown did. And that does matter to some extent. And then also, the defensive ceiling they can reach. This team defended well in the playoffs last year, but when you're talking about them going against a high-powered offense like Milwaukee, which was the best shooting team in last year's playoffs, a quick appearance there, but an elite shooting group before adding Damian Lillard. Now you have that caliber of a creator. You have all that shooting. You have the unique rim pressure from Giannis. They have all of these dynamic offensive tools, and I think they're better equipped defensively. Can Denver reach that two-way level? I think we still need to see. And losing Bruce does matter there. Their starting five defended well, but he was another good, valuable defensive piece. So the margins are so slim, and I have debated just like, is Denver being such an unstoppable machine offensively enough to give them the edge? I thought about it, but I really don't think they have an answer for what Milwaukee does opposite them. And they're going to be a problem, man. The Bucks are going to be a big old problem. So right now, I would have them winning. I would have it a 7-game series between them and Denver, but they are my title pick. So there you have it, guys. I have Bucks over Nuggets in my finals. Logan, you have Lakers over who?
I have the Celtics out of the East. I have the Bucks higher in my power rankings, but I'm going to say the Celtics upset the Bucks for the hell of it. So Lakers over Celtics is my official pick.
All right. There you go, guys. We are officially ready to start some NBA basketball. I am excited beyond words. We are going to be giving our takeaways from opening night. We're going to do another NBA show later in the week on Friday, reacting to what we've seen from most teams' opening games. So this is the most wonderful time of the year. Well, I guess really the NBA playoffs are, but super, super excited to get into all the action this season. So if you enjoyed this show, as always, you can find all of the Nerd Sesh shows at the Volume YouTube page with video. You can also listen to the podcast across audio platforms. You can follow us across social media, Instagram and TikTok at Nerd Sesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. You can join our Discord. That is at the link tree across our social media bios. If you just want to talk NBA, NFL, be part of our community there. And you can buy some Nerd Sesh merch. We've got hats, we've got hoodies, we've got the flags behind us. We've got shirts, so check all of that out at thevolume.com. And with that, as always, appreciate you guys. I've been Carson Breber.
I have been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.